The street was quiet that night. Cold wind moved through the broken buildings. The sky was dark, and clouds covered the stars. The city lights were dim. No one wanted to walk these streets after sunset. But there, near an old wall, a young alien woman sat alone. Her skin had a soft silver glow, but it was covered in dirt. Her clothes were torn. She held her arms tight around her chest, trying to stop her shivering. Her eyes were red from crying, and her lips were dry. She hadn't eaten in 2 days. Her name was Zira. She had once lived in a big house with her alien relatives. They were rich and powerful, but after her parents died, they didn't want her. They said she was weak, useless, and just a burden. One morning they pushed her out and said, "Go find your own way." She begged. She cried, but they closed the door. Since then, she had been on the streets. Every day was harder than the last. Now it was freezing. Her legs had no feeling. Her head felt heavy. She wanted to sleep, but she knew if she closed her eyes, she might never open them again. People passed by. Some looked at her. Some crossed the street. No one stopped. Zira didn't blame them. This was a human city. Aliens were not welcomed. Everywhere. Even though the war had ended years ago, fear still lived in people's hearts. Suddenly, she heard footsteps. Not fast. Not slow, calm and steady. She didn't lift her head. She was too tired. But the footsteps stopped in front of her. "Are you okay?" A voice asked. It was a man's voice, soft, deep, and kind. She looked up slowly. A human man stood there. He was wearing a long coat. His face was calm, but his eyes showed worry. Zira tried to speak, but her throat was dry. She coughed. The man knelt down in front of her. "Can you stand?" he asked. Zira shook her head, without saying another word. He took off his warm coat and wrapped it around her. She felt warmth for the first time in days. The coat smelled like firewood and soap. "I can't leave you here," he said. Then he lifted her gently in his arms. Zira wanted to resist, but her body was weak. She leaned against his chest. She felt safe, even though she didn't know him. As he walked through the street with her in his arms, people stared. Some whispered, but he didn't stop. He didn't look at them. He took her to a small building near the edge of the city. It looked old from the outside, but inside it was clean and warm. He placed her on a couch near a small heater. "Wait here," he said, and went to the kitchen. Zira looked around. There were books, a wooden table, and soft lights. It was simple but peaceful. The man returned with a cup of warm soup. "Drink this slowly," he said. She held the cup with shaking hands. The first sip burned her tongue, but she didn't care. It was delicious. "My name is Ethan," the man said, sitting on a chair beside her. "You don't have to talk if you don't want to." Zira looked at him. She didn't know what to do. Say no one had shown her kindness in a long time. "Why?" she whispered. Ethan tilted his head. "Why what? Why help me?" He smiled gently. "Because no one deserves to be left out in the cold." Zira's eyes filled with tears. She looked away, embarrassed. "You're safe now," he said softly. "Rest. We'll talk later." She nodded slowly and placed the empty cup on the table. Her eyes grew heavy. She wanted to stay awake, but her body finally gave in. As she fell asleep on that old couch with the human's coat wrapped around her, Zira felt something new, hope. She didn't know who Ethan truly was. She didn't know what tomorrow would bring, but tonight, she was not alone. Zira woke up slowly. Her eyes blinked at the warm light in the room. A soft blanket covered her, and a gentle heat came from a small heater nearby. For a moment, she forgot the cold streets, the pain, the fear. Then she remembered. She sat up quickly, too quickly. Her head spun. Where was she? Then, the smell of something warm and fresh hit her nose. It was food. She turned her head and saw the same human man from last night standing in the kitchen. He was stirring something in a pot. He didn't hear her. Wake up. Zyra watched him quietly. He was not rich or dressed like a soldier. His clothes were simple. His hair was messy. But he moved with calm purpose, like someone who knew how to survive. And his home. It was small but full of little things that showed care. A plant on the shelf. A repaired chair. A photo of a child on the wall, probably not his, she thought. He finally turned around and smiled when he saw her awake. "Good morning," he said gently. "You slept through the night." Zyra lowered her eyes. She still felt like a stranger. Like a broken thing lying on someone else's couch. "I made something for you," he added, holding a bowl. "Not fancy, just warm." He walked over and placed the bowl on the table beside her. Zyra looked at it. Simple vegetable stew. She hadn't seen this much food in days. "Eat," he said. "Then we can talk." Zyra picked up the spoon and took a bite. The warmth filled her chest. Her eyes became wet again, but she quickly wiped them. She hated crying. The man sat on the floor nearby, not too close. "I didn't mean to scare you last night," he said. "I saw you on the street. I couldn't just walk by." "You should have," Zyra whispered. He shook his head. "No, I've seen too many people pretend they don't see others suffering. I won't be one of them." She didn't speak for a moment. Then, she asked, "Why live in this part of the city?" Ethan smiled. "It's quiet. People leave you alone here. I like that." He didn't ask her about her past. He didn't ask what kind of alien she was. He didn't even ask her name. She was surprised. "You don't ask questions?" She said. "I will," he said honestly, "but not now. First, I want you to feel safe." Zyra lowered her spoon. "No one's ever said that to me before." Ethan looked at her seriously. "Then it's about time someone did." There was a silence. Outside, the wind still howled. But inside, the small room was warm. Zyra finally asked, "What is your name?" "Ethan," she nodded. "I'm Zyra," he smiled. "Nice to meet you, Zyra." Her heart beat faster at the sound of her name spoken kindly. But deep inside her, fear still lived. She didn't know how long she could stay. She didn't know if the people who hated her were still looking. She had a secret, a dangerous one. She was not just a poor alien. She was someone who had escaped from something bigger. Something deadly, and Ethan didn't know yet. Suddenly, the power blinked. The lights dimmed. Ethan stood up quickly. "It's the old grid. Happens during windstorms," he said, checking a small control box on the wall. But Zyra's hands trembled. Her eyes were locked on the window. Outside, in the shadowed alley, two glowing red lights flickered, not from a car. From eyes. "Did anyone follow you here?" Ethan asked quietly. Zyra didn't speak. The fear in her face gave the answer. He didn't panic. He walked to the window slowly, pulled the curtain down, and turned off the light. Then he walked to a hidden drawer and opened it. Inside was something unexpected. A weapon. Clean old, but powerful. A blaster, human-made. Zyra's voice shook. Who are you?" Ethan loaded the weapon calmly. "Someone who's seen too many people hunted." He looked at her with sharp eyes. "And someone who protects those the world throws away." Zyra's breath caught. Maybe this human was more than just kind, maybe. He was dangerous to her enemies. Zyra didn't sleep deeply that night. She kept waking up every hour, heart pounding, ears sharp to every sound. Her body was safe under the warm blanket, but her mind kept returning to the past. The streets, the cold, the moment her own relatives tossed her out like broken trash. And now, this place. Not a cage, not a trap. A quiet, warm room with soft lights and the smell of wood and oil. A room that didn't ask questions. In the early hours of morning, Zyra opened her eyes again. This time, she didn't feel afraid. The light filtering through the curtain was golden and soft. A kettle steamed quietly in the corner. The human, Ethan, sat on the other side of the room, reading a small book. His eyes looked tired, but focused. He noticed her watching and smiled gently. "You slept better this time," he said. Zira slowly sat up. Her body still ached, but something was different. She didn't feel like a stray animal anymore. "What is this place?" she asked, her voice still rough. Ethan closed the book. "Old repair shop. Used to fix drones here. Now I just fix things that are broken." Zira looked down at her hands. "Then why fix me?" she whispered. Ethan leaned back in his chair. "Because broken things aren't useless. They just need someone who sees their value." Zira blinked. No one had ever said that to her. Back home, value came from bloodlines, powers, or obedience. She had none of those. "You don't even know what I am," she said. "I know what I see," Ethan replied. "A girl thrown out for no reason. That's enough for me." Zira looked away. Her throat was tight again. She stood carefully, her feet still weak. She walked to the mirror on the wall. Her reflection shocked her. Her silver skin had bruises. Her hair was tangled. Her eyes, once bright violet, looked tired and dim. But beneath all that, she saw something strange. A flicker of herself. As if this human, was slowly returning something she had lost long ago. "I need to leave soon," she said suddenly. Ethan stood too. "Because of the ones watching?" Zira turned sharply. "You saw them too?" "I always watch," Ethan said. "I saw them last night. Red-eyed drones, bounty grade, expensive. That means someone really wants you." Zira backed up against the wall. "They found me." Ethan didn't move closer. He just watched her with calm eyes. "Why are they after you?" he asked, voice low. Zira hesitated. Then, slowly she pulled the collar of her shirt down, just enough to reveal a faint glowing symbol on her shoulder. A shape of a spiral star surrounded by alien script. Ethan's eyes narrowed. "That's royal marking, core worlds." Zira nodded. "I'm not just unwanted, I'm hunted. My family carries power. They don't want me alive because I know a secret." Ethan raised an eyebrow. "What kind of secret?" Zira hesitated, then whispered, "The war. It never really ended. They're planning something. I overheard them. I tried to warn the peacekeepers, but my family found out. They chose silence and threw me out." Ethan was quiet for a long moment. Then he walked to a locked cabinet and opened it. Inside were maps, weapons, old codes, things most humans didn't keep in peaceful cities. "You're not the first person I've helped," he said. "But this this is bigger." Zira looked at him with surprise. "Who are you really?" Ethan smiled, but his eyes stayed serious. "Let's just say, I used to wear a uniform. Before the peace treaties. Before I saw how the game really works." He walked over to a table and unfolded a map of the city. "They'll search this sector by nightfall. We need to move before then," he said. Zira stepped closer. "You're helping me escape?" "No," Ethan replied. "I'm helping you survive. There's a difference." She stared at him. "Why?" He looked at her directly. "Because someone out there thinks your voice is dangerous. That means it's important." A strange feeling filled Zira's chest. For the first time since she was cast out, she didn't feel like a mistake. She felt important. She whispered, "Then let's not waste it." Ethan nodded. The quiet repair shop was no longer just a place of shelter. It was now a place of purpose. A human and an alien, two broken people, now standing against a system that tried to erase them. And outside the window, those red eyes were watching. But inside the warm room, a plan was beginning to form. The old repair shop was quiet, but tension filled the air. Ethan moved across the room with careful steps, checking each window, every corner, every sensor. Zira stood near the center table, her hand on her shoulder where the mark still glowed faintly under her shirt. That mark was more than just a family symbol. It was a curse, a tracker, a target, and it was active. Ethan returned with a small scanner, device older than most would trust. He waved it near her shoulder. The screen blinked red. Zyra's heart dropped. I was afraid of this, Ethan said. They activated the beacon remotely. You've been broadcasting your location for days. She stepped back. I didn't know. I thought I was safe after I left them. You were, Ethan said. Until they flipped the signal. Someone in their network wanted you found. Zyra's hands trembled. That mark was placed on her skin when she was just a child, part of a royal bloodline ritual. Her cousins wore it with pride. But her mark had been altered, used now as a weapon to silence her. What do I do? She asked, her voice shaking. How do I turn it off? Ethan didn't answer right away. He looked at her like someone studying. A live explosive. You don't, he said at last. Not without the original genetic key. That key is probably in the hands of your family, or the hunters they hired. Zyra sat down, her face pale. Then I'm a walking signal. They'll find us. Ethan crouched down beside her. Yes, unless we trick them first. He stood and grabbed a small metal case. Inside were strange tools, solder pens, wires, small chips glowing with blue light. I can't stop the signal, he said, opening a chip. But I can redirect it. Make them chase a false signal while we head the other way. Zyra looked at him in shock. You can do that? I used to jam enemy trackers during the last border conflict, Ethan said with a faint smile. Back when humans weren't supposed to be smart enough to do that. Zyra almost laughed. Almost. She watched as he worked fast. His fingers moved with quiet focus. He soldered a small pulse jammer, wrapped it in a band, and handed it to her. Put this over your shoulder. It won't last forever, maybe 6 hours. But it'll give us a head start. Zyra took it, her hands brushing his. Why are you doing all this for me? She asked again. Ethan looked at her. Because I believe you. Zyra froze. She had told her story to others before. A peacekeeper. Once. A city gate officer once. No one had believed her. No one had helped except Ethan. He stood now with a map spread out again. There's an old sky freight station near the scrap fields. No security, barely used. I have a contact there. She owes me a favor. Zyra raised an eyebrow. She? Ethan smirked. Her name is Mira, smuggler, doesn't like aliens, but really doesn't like royals, so you're in luck. Zyra nodded, strapping the jammer over her shoulder. The device beeped once, and a blue ring flashed on it. The red signal was gone. For now. Outside, the city buzzed. From the rooftops, a small drone with glowing red eyes scanned the streets. It hovered near the block, paused, and turned away, chasing a new signal heading toward the South Pier. Zyra watched it from the window. You did it, she whispered. Ethan grabbed a small bag and loaded it with energy bars, water, extra tools, and a worn blaster. Don't thank me yet, he said. If they realize we fooled them, they'll be twice as dangerous. As they moved toward the door, Zyra hesitated. She turned back toward the room, the place where she had felt safe, warm, and heard. For a brief second, she felt like she was leaving home again. I'll come back here, she said softly. Ethan looked over. Maybe, but by the time you do, you might not be the same girl anymore. Zyra nodded. Maybe that was true, because for the first time, she wasn't just running. She was preparing to fight back, and the mark on her shoulder, once a curse, now reminded her what she had to live for. The sun was setting, and the sky turned orange like fire. The wind carried dust through the broken streets. Streetlights flickered, struggling to wake. And then they came. Not with sirens. Not with warning, but with silence. 3 bounty hunters. Moved like shadows, their armor black and shining, their faces hidden under helmets with red visors. Their boots didn't make a sound, But the air around them grew cold wherever they passed. One of them scanned the alley walls with a long device. Another knelt down, touching a footprint in the dirt. The third simply stood still, staring straight ahead, like he could feel the fear in the city. They were not looking for a criminal. They were looking for Zira, and they were close. A few blocks away, in a tight alley near the freight station, Zira followed Ethan through a maze of trash and old cargo crates. Her hood was up. Her breathing was slow. Her body felt stronger now, but her mind was sharp with fear. Ethan stopped and looked back at her. "You doing okay?" he asked. Zira nodded. "Yes, just, I feel like we're being watched." "You're not wrong." He pointed to a small motion sensor above the alley. "That thing hasn't blinked in 2 months. Now it's blinking green. Someone tripped it." Zira swallowed. "They're here." "Probably," Ethan said. "But they're not after this place." "Not yet." He opened a secret door in the wall, cleverly hidden behind a pile of metal scraps. "Down here," he whispered. They moved inside quickly. A staircase led to an underground storage area, old, dusty, but safe for now. Lights buzzed overhead. The room smelled like oil and metal. And then click, a gun cocked. Zira froze. From behind a stack of crates, a woman stepped out. She wore a long coat, goggles on her head, and a blaster aimed directly at Ethan's chest. "You brought trouble." "Ethan," she said. Ethan raised his hands. "Mira, good to see you too." She didn't smile. "Who's the girl?" Mira asked. "Someone the royals want dead," Ethan said. "Which means she's someone worth saving." Mira's eyes turned to Zira. "She doesn't look like a fighter." Zira stepped forward. "I wasn't, but I'm not running anymore." Mira tilted her head. "Good, because the bounty on your head just hit the high boards. 500,000 credits. Half for you dead. Double for you alive." Zira's blood ran cold. 500,000. That was enough to make every hunter in the sector come chasing. Ethan looked at Mira. "Can you still get us off-world?" Mira lowered the blaster slowly. "Maybe, but not through the station. It's being watched. I'll need a day to reroute. You'll have to hide until then." "We don't have a day," Zira said. Ethan walked to a console. "We make one." But while they talked, the bounty hunters were already at the old repair shop. The door was open. The heater was cold. The couch was empty. But one of the hunters walked straight to the floor and placed a small device down. It beeped, and a memory imprint flashed in the air. Zira's image appeared, sitting on the couch. Another flash, Ethan handing her soup. The hunter scanned the image, locked eyes with it. Target confirmed. Then he stood. "No more hiding," he said in a voice made of steel. The three vanished into the shadows again, back underground. Zira sat against the wall, clutching her knees. Ethan checked his tools, rewiring. "The jammer, you okay?" he asked her again. Zira looked up. "Do you think, if they catch me, they'll kill me right away?" Ethan stared at her, serious. "No, I think they'll keep you alive just long enough to erase your voice forever." Zira was quiet. Then she said something that made Ethan stop. "Then we make my voice louder." He turned. "What do you mean?" "I told you I know something," Zira said. "About the war. About what's coming." She stood now, taller, braver. "They're building something. A fleet. A new class of silent ships. Not for defense, for domination." Ethan's jaw tightened. "You're sure?" "I saw the plans," she said. "Before they erased the servers. Before they tried to erase me." Mira whistled low. "That's why they want you. You're not just a witness, you're proof." Ethan stepped forward. "Then we don't just run." He looked at both women. "We expose them." Zira nodded. "I'm done hiding." She said. The door above creaked. Boots. Heavy ones. They were here. Ethan grabbed his blaster. Zira took a deep breath and grabbed a second one. No longer a broken girl, No longer a hunted princess. Now, a threat. Asterisk. The floor above them creaked again. Ethan raised his hand, motioning for silence. Zira gripped the blaster tight, her fingers cold but steady. Mira slid behind a crate, eyes sharp, already aiming her rifle at the stairs. The hum of boots grew louder, calm, heavy, deliberate. "They're not rushing," Ethan whispered. "They know we're trapped." Zira swallowed. "What now?" Ethan's eyes narrowed. "We make sure they regret coming here." It hadn't always been like this for him. Years ago, Ethan was just another soldier, following orders in the border. Wars. He had seen things, cities turned to ash, prisoners used as bait, friends buried under silence. And most of all, he'd seen what power did to truth. That's why he quit. That's why he disappeared. He thought he was done fighting, but tonight, standing between Zira and the hunters chasing her like prey, something awakened in him again. Not the soldier, not the killer, the protector. A metallic crash echoed through the stairwell. One of the bounty hunters dropped down, crouching low, scanning the room with glowing red eyes. His armor reflected the low light. A symbol on his shoulder read, R17. One of the elite. Ethan didn't wait. He fired. The shot hit the hunter square in the chest, but the armor absorbed most of it. The hunter rolled sideways, returned fire. Blue energy bolts screamed through the air. Zira ducked, heart racing. Mira hit the lights. The room went dark except for the flickering sparks of gunfire. More footsteps above. 2 more incoming. Mira shouted. Ethan tossed a small flash charge toward the stairs. Boom. White light exploded. One hunter stumbled down, swinging. Wildly, Zira didn't think. She aimed. She fired. The bolt hit the hunter's helmet hard. He fell, his visor cracking. Silence returned for a breath. Then, CRAS. The final hunter dropped from above like a machine. This one was bigger, stronger. And he spoke. "Give her to us," he growled, "and you may live." Ethan stepped in front of Zira. "No," he said. The hunter raised his weapon. Zira stood beside Ethan now. "I'm not hiding anymore." She fired again, this time at the ceiling pipes. Steam burst out, blinding the hunter. Ethan charged forward and slammed the butt of his blaster into the enemy's face. Once, twice. The helmet cracked open. The hunter fell, hard, breathing heavy. Ethan dropped to one knee. Zira rushed to him. "You're hurt," she said. "Just tired." He smiled weakly. Mira checked the bodies. "They'll be missed," she warned. "Whoever sent them will know they failed." "Good," Ethan said. "Let them know. Let them come." Zira looked at him, confused. Ethan met her eyes. "This ends with us turning the tables," he said. "I'm not running anymore either." She blinked. "You don't have to do this for me." "I'm not doing it for you," he said quietly. "I'm doing it because no one else will." Later that night, while Mira worked on opening a secret channel off-world, Zira and Ethan sat near the fire. She was quiet. Then she asked, "Why did you decide to help me that night, really?" Ethan looked into the flames. "Because when I saw you freezing on that street, I saw myself," he said. "Left behind, forgotten, treated like nothing." He turned to her. "But you're not nothing. You're someone they're afraid of. That makes you powerful." Zira's eyes filled with quiet tears. Not of fear, of strength. She leaned forward and whispered, "Then let's fight together, Ethan." Nodded. Together. Across the city, in a dark royal chamber on the homeworld, a screen blinked. Target resistance confirmed. 3 hunters lost, a voice crackled. "And the girl?" Another voice replied coldly, "She has protection now." The smuggler ship rumbled softly as it left the planet's atmosphere, breaking through layers of clouds and noise, and finally entering the calm silence of space. Zira stood near the small window, watching her world shrink behind her. The glowing cities, the broken alleys, The royal towers, all of it slowly disappeared into the dark sky. She didn't cry. Not this time. She had already shed enough tears for the place that betrayed her. Now she looked forward. Behind her, Ethan leaned against the wall, arms crossed. His jacket was torn, one shoulder bandaged. The last few days had been war. Every step they took was chased by danger. But they had made it. Mira's ship had no name, just a number, F9. It was old, fast, and invisible to most radars. Just what they needed. Mira herself sat in the pilot's seat, chewing gum, as if smuggling two fugitives across star systems was just another Tuesday. "You two make a lot of noise," she called back. "You better have a plan for what happens next." Zira turned from the window. "We do," Ethan nodded. "She's not just a target anymore. She's proof of corruption, of betrayal, of what's really happening beyond the peace talks." Mira raised an eyebrow. "And you think people will believe you?" "They won't believe words," Zira said. "But they'll believe files. Images, coordinates, ship models, names." She pulled out the small black drive they had taken from the Royal Lab's hidden console data she had risked everything to keep. Mira whistled low. "That's dangerous stuff. You release this, your family will be hunted. Your enemies will panic, and the galaxy? It won't stay quiet." Zira looked at her calmly. "I'm not asking for quiet," she said. "I'm asking for truth." Later, in the crew room, Ethan and Zira sat alone. The ship hummed gently, like a heart no longer afraid. Ethan placed a steaming cup in front of Zira. Not soup this time, real tea. Mira had saved some for special travelers. Zira smiled as she took a sip. "Do you miss it?" she asked suddenly. "Earth?" Ethan asked. Zira nodded. Ethan looked at the stars through the ceiling window. "Sometimes," he said. "But I never really had a home there." She looked down. "Me neither." Double quote silence. Then Ethan added, "Maybe home isn't a place. Maybe it's a person." Zira looked up, eyes meeting his. Soft, warm, unspoken words passed between them. She smiled. "Then maybe I finally have one." The next day, they reached an old colony station, forgotten by most, floating near a quiet moon. No laws, no politics. Just people trying to survive. Mira docked and turned to them. "This is where we part ways. Try not to get killed." Zira gave her a soft nod. "Thank you for everything." Mira waved it off. "Don't thank me. I like people who break systems." As they stepped off the ship, the air smelled of old metal and spices. Alien children laughed in the distance. Traders shouted about engine parts. It wasn't royal. It wasn't clean. But it felt alive. Zira looked around. "This could be it," she said. Ethan smiled beside her. "Our new start." They didn't have much. A bag, a drive full of dangerous secrets, and each other, but they didn't need anything else. Weeks passed. The data was sent, slowly, carefully. Pieces of truth leaked into the networks. News feeds buzzed. Whispers spread. The royals denied everything, but the people began to ask questions. And far from it all, in a quiet corner of space, Zira planted a small glowing plant in the ground beside a tiny home. Ethan stepped out with tools in hand, grease on his face. "Need help?" he asked. Zira smiled. "No, I think I've got it." She had been thrown out. Abandoned. Hunted. But one human saw her. One human stayed, and because of him, she didn't just survive. She became free.